right now you're on the green coffee importer. You own green coffee importer, and that's your like biggest focus.
Yeah.
Any other coffee experience you have outside of green buying?
Yeah, I mean, done everything in coffee there is to do. So I started when I was like 16 years old, working in a place in the town I grew up in, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to start roasting and being a barista. So I worked there through high school and university, which was a great learning experience because we were kind of free to do whatever. This is like mid to late 90s, so no one knew that coffee could be a career. Specialty coffee was a term I think I might have heard maybe after 2 or 3 years. This is like I remember when we first got a hand tamper at the cafe. That was a big deal. Or getting David Schilmer's espresso book in 1996. I still have it.
Right.
That was a game changer, totally. Because something I was passionate about that I didn't know other people were passionate about. This is like internet was just in its infancy, so the only way you could get information was to talk to people, magazines or whatnot. But coffee was so obscure at the time. So I still remember to get that book. That was such a huge deal, game changer for me. And I realized maybe there was a career path here. Maybe not at that time, but yeah. So then things evolved, and then I was roasting for a long time, graduated university, and I did a business degree. So they teach you in business school that you should get a real job as soon as you graduate. So I thought, I should get a real job. Coffee roasting is not a real job. So I quit, and then after like 3 months, I really missed it. But I worked in another industry for 5 months, and then I was missing coffee too much, and I had a lot of experience. So I thought, maybe there's another opportunity in Calgary that I can look for. So I went to work for a company. They were doing wholesale programs for businesses, like hotels and restaurants. And it was a good opportunity because it was just starting out, and they needed someone with a coffee background. So I started in that company, worked in many roles, a lot of coffee-related stuff, a lot of non-coffee-related stuff, a lot of management and HR, and do a lot of sales. It was a great experience to learn how to work in a startup company. It just so happened that we sold coffee and other products. But after doing that for another decade, I was kind of like, okay, well, all I want to do is coffee stuff all day long. I'm not really interested in doing the rest of it. Not that it was bad, it's just you do it for 10 years, it's time for a change. So what can I focus on that's coffee related? And what was the most interesting thing to me that I hadn't done was trying to source and sell. And I came at it from a perspective, not just so that I could travel and meet farmers, but I wanted to drink really interesting coffees. And then just start pulling the string, right? So you want to drink interesting coffees. Where do they come from? Who's producing them? How do you get access to those coffees? Because we used to have toll roasting set up in that company. So I used to buy green coffee. And I always wondered, how can I buy coffees that I really love to drink? I still remember there was a Kenyan coffee from Hart Roasters that I tried. And, where does that come from? How do you get access to that? How can I work for a company. We could buy that. How do we buy that? And there was just no easy path forward. So it always kind of stuck in my mind that could be an opportunity. So I went to work for another company just selling green coffee. Which is a good learning experience. But, at the end of that, I did that for a year. And at the end, I was just like, I want to sell the coffees that I want to sell. So I started my own. So just trying to get out there. It's all about trying to drink great coffees. That's where the whole idea came from. So I guess when you start with that passion, then everything else just kind of falls into place.
Yeah, green buying is definitely some gray area for most of coffee professionals. Even I tried to figure out. I was like, this is the huge part. So if I do coffee roasting cafe and doing the green coffee at the same time, then it's like I cannot do everything. So finding a green coffee importing that process was really
and it's challenging because in business school we learn if you're a buyer, that's a set of skills, right? If you're a seller, that's a set of skills. If you're they're two totally different things. So to find people that are good at both is challenging. But also you can't focus on. So in my role and the company's role, we have to do both. But we have to constantly find a balance between the two. So for me, it was really hard at the beginning to not just buy coffees that I liked. Because no matter what you do, unconsciously you always choose certain types of coffees. So it would be we're steering down the same path always. So you get 10 or 12 coffees, they all taste the same. It's not a great portfolio to sell to people. So we had to learn how to pick the ones that you like, obviously, that you're going to be passionate about selling, but also what does the market want? So you have to do a lot of research and talk to a lot of people, drink a lot of coffees to understand what are people buying, what's out there with your competition, what's not out there, and then be able to fill that need. So it's a particular skill, and I think there's a lot of companies out there that do a really good job of that as well. But green buying it's got it's sexy, right, because of the travel and all that sort of stuff. But for me, when I'm doing that, I try to focus on the responsibility that I have to the people that we work with. Because if I find a farm that we're buying from, times are good, we want to buy their coffee. When times are bad, we still have to buy their coffee. That's how I feel. So for me, it's like a big responsibility. So during the pandemic, with unknown demands, we still have to stand by our farmers as much as we can. So can be stressful, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding, especially when you can be successful at it.
Yeah. And about the green buyer, the job and role, people have in their imaginary world, it is really romantic job. You travel and taste coffees and pick what you like, and in the price range, you sell the best coffee in certain price ranges. And that's kind of maybe most of people think about how that is different to the realistic coffee buyers.
Everyone thinks it's like Indiana Jones, in the movie, and he gets in a plane and it's like the little red dot and they're flying city to city and you're going all these exotic places. It kind of is like that. But at the end of the day, you're there to do business. So if you're going to be good at doing business, you have to understand what are you buying, and don't waste people's time, right? You're not a tourist, so you're there to do a job. And so the best buyers that I've run into on the trail, they know exactly what they're looking for. They're very direct. They're firm in their beliefs. They don't buckle under pressure. They're not confused about what they want, and they just do a quick deal, and then they move on to the next thing. So you can't get the best buyers are the ones that don't get sidetracked. And they also understand what they're there for. But yeah, it can be challenging because you're getting on a plane, you're flying 25 or 30 hours to a place. The 12-hour time change. And so normally we land and you're right to a lab and you're expected to make like $250,000 of decisions on 2 hours sleep in the past 2 days. That's tough.
Yeah, it sounds very tough.
Yeah, and their lab protocols are different than back home, and some people are very strict, some people aren't very strict, and the roasting can be maybe not what you're most used to tasting. So you have to kind of understand the boundaries that you're working within, but also be able to taste through something that's like maybe outside of the boundaries. So it's challenging for sure. But it's also really rewarding as well, especially when you find something that's great and somebody else gets super excited about it and you're just sitting in that farmer's kitchen chatting with them. That can be really exciting. But it definitely is the romantic job in the industry.
Yeah.
In people's minds anyway.
Yeah. And in my understanding, green buying and importing coffee from origin, there are so many steps, and there are so many unexpected happenings between that process. Do you have any kind of the worst situation you faced, or the most frustrated moments?
Yeah, frustrating moments. You're like
so many.
Yeah, I get a bit anal about shipping times and things, but when you're shipping to the western ports in Canada, especially, the ship stops a lot of places. That's something that people don't realize. You don't put it on a boat in a port and it goes straight to the city that you want, right? So it's stopping. So I'm constantly you can track this things to the minute. So I'm constantly checking, is this on time at this port? It's sitting in Shanghai and it's getting unloaded onto a different boat and are they going to lose it? So it causes me to lose sleep at night because you want the coffees, when you tasted them, how good they are, and you want them to taste the same when they arrive. There's a lot of things out of your control at that point. It's not a comfortable position to be in, but that can be super stressful.
logistic parts.
Yeah, that, and also you want to have coffees. Another trick to doing what we do well is you have to have coffees that people understand and can work with. So you may get excited about some crazy coffee that's like a really high altitude processed lot or something that's going to be hard to work with. So you want to have a coffee that people can actually roast and get excited about what you're excited about. You don't want it to be too obscure or too strange that people can't they don't get it. So that can be something too. You have to be careful when you're selecting coffees. Make sure you're buying what your market wants. And also the sales cycle too for us. We're selecting coffees months before we're going to be selling them. So what does the Canadian coffee market want in like February 2022? That's kind of what we're looking at right now when we're doing some Columbia purchases. So what's it going to look like in 2022? Who knows?
Yeah.
So we have to keep that in mind. And now we have a few years of doing this, so it's a little bit easier. But at the beginning, it was all by feel. Just what do I think could happen? So you make some decisions and you overbuy or you underbuy. That can be stressful too.
Yeah. Coffee is seasonal product, and it is flavor related. It's not just like for example, make a laptop and sell. That is more like predictable in terms of like demand usually. But coffee is not like that.
It's something you never want to lose opportunities, so that stresses me out. I just speak to a client. They said, "Oh, we're working on a huge account that they love this farmer's coffee." Okay, great, sounds good. They're like, "Yeah, we want to stock it in this quantity, 48 out of 52 weeks a year." So my mind starts running like, well, how are we going to do that? Like, it's not on coffee, especially specialty coffee, it's not in a warehouse on a shelf. You just pick it, put it in a bag, and ship it out to someone. You have to back up. It takes like a year of organization to make sure you're going to get enough of that product. And that can be really tough, but it's also part of the challenge too. That's why I like it. But yeah, predicting demand and knowing what to buy is really difficult.
Yeah. For example, if you buy too much coffee and too much left the following harvest, then it impacts to the following year's purchase. If you are short, then literally, if you want to get there, you need to wait a certain time to get it. So those parts, I just imagine how it works, and I'm already frustrated. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, it'd be like any business, right? If say you had a client walk in and they buy 10 units, and they say, "I'll be back next year." So you think, okay, maybe they'll buy 10 or 11, but you come back and say you only buy 2 units. Well, what happened? So they overbought the year before. So you have a responsibility with the people that you work with to be realistic, and to be responsible what you get. But yeah, it can be tough for sure. But one of the things that I wanted to do with this company always have good coffees on the spot list. Spot list is just what's available currently. I don't want to become a company you have to know me or talk to me 6 months before just to make sure you get access to certain coffees. It's not really my goal. I don't want to be exclusive like a club. I want to have always good coffees available for people always. I think it's just more meaningful that way. But that is also another challenge too, right? So you have to again predict, because coffee has an expiration date, and no one knows what that is. So you have to learn by experience and by feel which coffees can sit in the warehouse and still taste good, and which ones might not.
Yeah.
So that's always tough. It's getting easier the more years that I do it, but the beginning that was a really big challenge.
Yeah. You still measuring water data, but still that doesn't really directly related with what flavor is left on there.
It's like a tool, right? So you try and use all the tools that you can, like your taste buds, your knowledge of the market, all the technical data to try and predict what the coffee will be. Sometimes you get coffees and the statistics are way off, and it tastes fantastic, and everyone's excited about it. And other times you get coffees that are all the stats, physical stats, bang on, and it just sits in the list and no one buys it. So you kind of have to massage it all the time. And still, at the end of the day, it's all a feel thing for me.
Yeah. I think, the final decision is more feel.
Yeah, it's like you can make a good final decision if you've done the work ahead of time and you kind of know what you're doing.